Let's start over.
Let's start over. All right. Welcome, everyone. We will call to order this meeting of Ava Community Energy's Community Advisory Committee. It is Tuesday, February 20th, and the time is 6:06 p.m. If we could please take a roll call and establish quorum.
Thank you. Member Landry.
Present.
Member Swaminathan. Member Swaminathan. Back to member, and my apologies, can you please go ahead? Okay. Member Lakshman.
I'm here.
Okay. Member Pacheco.
Is
Member Souza?
excused.
Member Souza. I see that.
I'm here.
Great, thank you. Member Carr. I see that you're here, but you're muted. Great, thank you.
I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Member Lutz. Vice Chair Hernandez.
Present.
Chair Eldridge.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. So our next item is public comment, and as a reminder, this item is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any Ava Community Energy related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time the matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the committee are customarily limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must complete an electronic speaker slip unless you're in the room, and then you can just line up at the podium. Have we received any public comment in writing, or are there any members of the public with their hands raised?
There are no members of the public with their hands raised. We have not received any written public comment.
This is Shiva.
Great.
I just joined.
Yes, thank you. I've recorded you as here.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, then we will close that agenda item and move on to the approval of minutes from January 16th, 2024. Is there any public comment received on this agenda item?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Excellent. Then is there a motion from this body?
Motion to approve, Member Landry.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion to approve, Member Landry, second by Member Souza. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, can we please, Yeah, Jim.
I'm shown as present up at the, and as not present as well. I was not.
I'll go ahead and fix that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. My apologies.
All right, I'm having a kind of funny internet thing here. Okay, so we have a motion to approve from Member Landry, a second from Member Souza, but we will fix Jim's attendance because he's talented, but that would be hard. So with that, can we please have a roll call vote?
Thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Swaminathan.
Yes.
Member Lakshman.
Yes.
Hold on 1 second. Member Souza.
Yes.
Member Carr.
Yes.
Member Lutz. Vice Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
And Chair Eldridge.
Yes.
Motions, the minutes are approved.
So I'm going to ask that if you are attending remotely and not actively speaking, to please mute your microphone. Some of us are calling in from kind of fun and loud places. So, all right, so as that motion passes, we will move on to the chair report. So some significant things happened. This will be my last meeting as chair because our next agenda item is very exciting. We will be selecting our new chair and vice chair. And looking at the term assignments. So that is very exciting. And I guess I did want to take a minute and just say thank you to everyone for the unbelievable just strength and talent and dedication that is regularly shown by this body. Many of y'all were not here when we started, and I want to point out a couple really cool things about this body in particular. We are the first CCA to have a seat on the board, and that is something that the community fought for and organized for, and gave us a very clear directive when we started, that our job was to advocate, to not be told what we could or could not talk about. That was a very intentional part of the creation of the advisory committee, that we would have a breadth of representation from various groups, and to recognize that expertise comes in a lot of formats and not all of them are PhDs, that people are experts in lived experience and representatives of communities, and that we created this, in fact, CCAs in general, to be responsive to communities that were starting them. That's the fundamental foundation of the legislation that required being passed in order for CCAs to even exist. So I am really excited and honored to not only have been the first chair of the CAC, but also to then have been called back to do it again. So I'm really stoked, and regardless of my lack of able to be on this body, I am still here as a resource for anyone who wants it, and actually have the opportunity now to pursue some of the education materials for CCAs, including their CACs and elected members that I started in law school. And I love this so much, and I love you all so much. It's actually pretty intense. So I'm just super grateful to have been here, and we'll put some information out on that in the coming months. So I had a thing written up for tonight's meeting and can't find it, so I'm going to do my best to summarize what happened at the last meeting. Due to the very heavy nature of so many topics on the last meeting agenda, not only our chair elections, but the chair elections for the board were also postponed to this meeting because of how long it was taking. They heard all of the feedback that we had. And I think just the highlights of there is that the end result of the budget topic is that so there was a motion to approve the Financial, Administrative, and Procurement Subcommittee's recommendation to allocate the net surplus revenues to working capital and reserve funds as 60% allocated to on-bill credits, with some portion applied specifically to CARE and FARA customers, and 40% allocated to option C, incentives for net billing tariffs. And there was a specific notation on there that option C allocations specifically target community resilience hubs, and that the budget surplus allocations will be reviewed by the executive committee. And it was approved with 15 yes and 1 abstention. So there was some really great discussion around workforce and EJ project selection criteria. And this did pass, staff recommendations did pass on that. The CAC did request that language regarding local hiring preferences aimed at ensuring diversity in hiring be shared for informational purposes. There was a really good discussion on that. If you want to go back, if you look at the board's agenda, it actually has the time that comments are made, so you can go in and listen to just that specific portion of it. The agenda item that looked at our contracting, like our long-term contracting, including the Mexico project, was basically approved. There was some discussion and some additional requests from the board to take a look at the project that is in Mexico. And specifically that AVA staff represent the executed agreement, because there isn't one right now, 12 months after its execution, and seek authorization to move forward once the board and this body have had sufficient review of wage and labor standards, and that any executed agreement has to include the right for AVA to terminate the agreement for any reason, including if the board takes a look at it and determines that labor standards do not meet AVA's organizational standards. So those are kind of the big highlights. And then there was a closed session, and there was no report out from that closed session. So that's what happened at the last meeting. And Vice Chair Hernandez, do you want to go over any items that are on the board's agenda, but that we are not covering tonight, so that if folks want to attend tomorrow night, they can?
Thank you, Chair. And just looking at the Board of Directors agenda for tomorrow, February 21st, I know there's contracts being entered. The primary items that were being discussed at the meeting are also being brought forth today. They have 3 items, I believe, that are under also consent. I think they selected a government relations firm or recommendation for a government relations firm named Omni. So that's being recommended for a 1-year contract. There's also some additional information around another item is about independent graphic web design. They're looking to extend that agreement with salary for about $925,000. And I think there's another amendment for assistance to the cities of Oakland, Livermore, Hayward, and Alameda County through a grant, I think provided through the California Energy Commission for another $300,000 to ARUP to provide that technical assistance, grant writing support. We'll be covering 2 other items today at the meeting.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So that summarizes it. Outside of an acknowledgement of Adrian, thank you so much for your work and your responsiveness. And the fact that there is food provided for members tonight is really awesome. So thank you so much for that. It is a big deal. Okay, so are there any public comments on the chair report or any discussion from members of this body? But public comment first.
There are no hands raised at this time.
So then we'll call on member Swaminathan.
Yes, hi. I just want to let you know that I might have to leave at 8 o'clock today. So thank you.
Me too. Excellent. Thank you. All right, so with that, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the selection of chair and vice chair
Oh.
and term assignments. Huh?
Point of order, I think that Member Landry has her hand raised.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Go for it, Cynthia.
Yes, I wanted to say, Chair Eldred, I've been with you since the beginning. I am going to miss you personally and certainly professionally. And I want to thank you for the great job you have done and advocating for the community and mentoring folks such as myself. And, you know, your service has been much appreciated. And I don't know if we will have time on the end to say anything further, but Godspeed to you.
Thanks, Cynthia. Member Souza?
Yes, I too want to second that emotion, and it's been wonderful. I'm glad that you're going to the board. I do think that it offers such a great opportunity to for the community to be heard. I'm very grateful that you're still with us in that. Thank you.
Oh, you're the best. I will be around, but I will not be on the board. Whoever's the next chair will take that seat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I will just get to join now as an advocate in the community.
Oh,
so-
then we will see you again then. My
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. So with that, let's elect a new chair. Adrian, can you tell us how this process is going to work?
That over to Decatur.
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. Alex, Public Engagement Manager. Yeah, I think that those who are interested in being considered for chair, first we'll start with chair and then we can go to vice chair. Those who are interested in being considered can raise their hand virtually or physically, and we'll take note of who those are, and then the members of the committee take a vote.
All right. Have we received any nominations prior to this evening? Self or otherwise?
Don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Is anyone interested in being chair? Haha.
I'll raise my hand. I'll make it, yes,
Thank you, Ed.
my pleasure.
Is anybody else interested in being chair? There's plenty of support out there. It's an excellent opportunity to advocate for all kinds of things. Wonderful exposure to elected officials. Can make a real change in your community.
And if I may, Chair, I just want to make sure I emphasize that I currently have a conflict during the Board of Directors meeting with the Eda Health District, so I would need a vice chair to step in occasionally until that gets moved. So if there is a vice chair that could support the chair with the Board of Directors meeting, that would be important. Until I didn't want to make any movement with my other board until this was more finalized, understood there would be a chair opportunity. So I want to make sure that's emphasized. If I do take on the chair role, I would need somebody also to be there as a vice chair on occasion. So to support the role and report out. If not, I would be able to give the report out after the meeting, once the other one concludes. Normally it's about an hour and a half at most hour. I could still join the meeting, but I would want to have somebody be there at the beginning to opine or share our concerns. So if somebody else can commit fully to being there at the board of directors meeting, that's fine with me too.
And the other piece is that once we have our new members, like it can be a temporary thing, like we can get some new members and have folks be able to step up for that. Okay, somebody gets to be vice chair. Because the conflict of interest of not being able to attend the board meetings is quite serious. And so if we want to continue to have representation, it can be for a short period of time, but we do need someone who can be there. So, All right, so then can we take nominations for vice chair?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at Jim Lutz in the room, actually. But it's, it's up to discussion and dialogue if somebody wants to. I would nominate Jim myself, but if there's other people in the room too. Or not in the room, per se, in the Zoom room. Chair Eldred, you also have maybe somebody in mind too?
Yeah, I try not to call people out without without their permission, but I've chatted with people. Mickey, are you interested?
I can. I would love to work with Ed, if if need be. I think that yeah, I could make some time to at least go to a meeting or two. So
Thank you.
that time I stepped up.
Deeply appreciated. And then Jim, are you interested in either the chair or the vice chair position?
Not really. I mean,
Okay,
I'm willing to do it and honored to do it, but I don't really want to do it. Is my answer. And if Mickey wants to do it, I would gladly step back.
so it sounds like Mickey's is open to being in the vice chair role. If you can decide whether or not you would like to be in the chair position, or if you will not want to do that, that is your call entirely.
Who is that addressed to?
You,
I'm willing,
so okay, would you both be interested in doing this election? Ed, do you feel like you can do it for the time being? I just want to make sure because of
Yeah.
that conflict.
No, yes, I can do it for the time being. I have to work through my other board to make sure we can move that forward. I think for tomorrow's meeting, I should be able to come through and be there a little later and work to schedule the other meeting to the following week, so it wouldn't be a conflict. So I'm going to work through that. If I can't work through that,
Okay.
we'll have to dialogue again.
Perfect. All right, Jim, you can be off the hook, but we may call on you again if if the need arises. All right, so at this moment, we have Vice Chair Hernandez, who is willing to serve as chair, and Member Souza, who's willing to serve as vice chair. And with that, there would be, do we have to do a motion, or Alex, do you just call a vote? Can we vote on the ticket?
I'd recommend a motion, a second, and a vote.
Mhm.
Okay. I move that we elect Vice Chair Hernandez as chair and Member Souza as vice chair of Ava Community Energy's Community Advisory Committee. Is there a second?
Cynthia Landry seconds.
Excellent. Motion by Chair Eldred, second by Member Landry.
Great, thank you. Vote. Great.
Okay,
thank you.
please do a roll call vote.
All right, thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
An enthusiastic yes.
Member Lockton, Member Lockman,
yes.
Member Pacheco. Oh, excuse me. Member Souza,
I really would have liked it if Jim would have done it. Yes.
Great, thank you. Member Carr,
Yes. Yes.
thank you. Member Lewis.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
Chair Eldred.
Yes, and thank you so much. So, Member Souza, we can share a document with you around note-taking to support, Chair Hernandez.
I'll continue
Thank
taking
you so
notes.
much.
We run the meeting still. Am I now the official chair? You keep going, Chair Eldred.
I think you're the chair now.
All right, thank you very much, Chair Eldred. Thank you very much for your service in these many years from East Bay Community Energy to AVA and the Worlds. And thank you very much for the faith and confidence of the support here. And welcome to Vice Chair Souza. Thank you very much, and we'll collaborate. And I'll share some of the notes that I learned on my way to take these notes and work with Adrian to make sure we get them out to the board quickly and summarize concretely. And I promise not to be long-winded after the vote. With that, I think we can move forward to our first item of business regarding, it's an informational item on Resilient Hubs. It's an informational update about Resilient Hubs. So who's speaking to that?
I'll be speaking to that.
JP. Thank you, JP. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair Hernandez. Thanks, Adrian. Well, tonight, a brief item that will be going through some processes with you all on the board around our upcoming program to support Resilience Hubs. So this speaks a little bit to the point that former Chair Eldred raised on the allocation of the budget surplus from last year. So if we can go to the next slide, Adrian. So there's been a lot of work that AVA has done already on supporting the development of resilience hubs for our cities through our critical municipal facilities program. And we also have been looking at ways to support the development of resilience hubs in the community, kind of in, for, and by the community, as has been requested by you all, members of the public, and the board. And so we've looked at a kind of a multi-pronged approach to providing this support. And the first part of this comes from the public engagement forum that we had in this room a while ago around our community resilience grants, community innovation grants. And so we plan to issue a grant to work with a local community-based organization to help AVA kind of develop a framework for defining and kind of acquiring new resilience hub opportunities. So the community innovation grants are going out in the form of $300,000 grants over a 3-year term. And the purpose of this community innovation grant would be to work with a community-based organization. They could help kind of identify and define case studies and best practices with respect to the development of resilience hubs, defining those resilience hubs, the purposes and the communities that they plan to serve, as well as performing kind of ongoing community engagement to provide sites that we could then move into a kind of a development process that we would be building. And so we see these sites coming to us over a long period of time, over the 3-year engagement, where this community-based organization is working within the community and identifying potential sites. So that's how the grant would operate in this program. Second is a technical assistance program. So we have been using a couple of independent engineers for our critical municipal facilities program. They've been helping us identify technologies for sites, sizing resilience systems, so solar and storage systems for the purposes of resilience, as well as providing ongoing technical assistance in kind of reviewing the sites and reviewing site design. So we would see and are planning to issue a solicitation to engage ongoing technical assistance for this Resilience Hub program. So as the CBO kind of brings site opportunities to us, we will have a technical assistance program that can do those same services that we have engaged so far for our critical municipal facilities program. So they can help those sites kind of build out preliminary designs, provide some guidance on constraints of those sites in providing the resilience that the community is expecting, as well as kind of doing bid reviews. So as Resilience Hub opportunities come in, we would expect those to go into a bidding process where developers, solar and storage companies would provide bids for building out those systems, and having a third party who can help evaluate those bids is quite helpful. And then lastly, no problem. Are we better? Thank you. And then another service that this technical assistance could provide is grant writing. So there's a lot of funding dollars coming in from the federal and state governments around resilience hubs. And so we see that many of these resilience hubs coming from within the community are likely going to be eligible for these grant dollars, but in many cases don't have the capacity or the skill set of going out and getting funding. And so it's another service that this technical assistance offering would provide. So that's the grants and the technical assistance. We're drafting these RFPs now, and we'll be planning to issue them soon. So plan to issue them in March, and takes a few months to then get these folks up and running. And then lastly is a solar and storage incentive program. So as discussed, there was a budget surplus of about $100 million that's forecast. That $100 million is not set in stone. We only will know that at the end of the year. But 40% of those funds have been allocated towards solar and storage. So we're drafting up a program to provide solar and storage incentives for new projects in response to the state's transition from net metering 2.0 to net billing tariff. And as many of you are aware, that has had an impact to the adoption of solar in the state and also in our service territory. So the goal of this incentive program is to provide incentives for solar plus storage projects that would be connected in, and we would have some visibility into the ongoing operation of those batteries. That incentive program will be a combination of an upfront incentive as well as an ongoing incentive, so that we can continue to pay for batteries that are continuing to operate, continuing to store the clean solar energy that's generated in the daytime, and then dispatching that energy during the course of the evening and nighttime when we have less access to clean renewable energy, and certainly in the evening times when energy prices are spiking and the grid is under strain. So having those batteries come online in the evening time is of paramount importance. And we are currently evaluating some DERMS platform, distributed energy resource management systems platforms, that can help us connect in these systems and evaluate the ongoing performance of these battery systems. So the new incentive program will require some level of connection to our upcoming DERMS platform. So the incentives will have kind of residential and non-residential elements, as well as higher incentives for care customers and for resilience hubs, recognizing the larger cost thresholds that those particular customers have. So our plan is to actually bring the solar and storage incentive along with our kind of net metering policy to the XCOM meeting in March, as requested by the board, and moving towards an April board approval of that program. And so we see this as a portfolio of programs really focused on building out these resilience hubs, community resilience hubs, in support of those activities. So wanted to give you all an info item on that, open up for discussion, get any feedback from you as we kind of go through this multi-month process of getting a final approval on the incentive program for solar and storage.
Thank you, JP. Questions from our members, clarifying questions? Any hands raised?
Clarifying question. Is the solar and storage incentive completely focused on resilience hubs, or is it a separate program that resilience hubs could apply to?
It is a program that resilience hubs can apply to. There will be residential and non-residential incentives that are not for resilience hubs. And part of the feedback we'll be getting from the board is how we allocate portions of that to particular customer segments.
Okay. And then another clarifying question. Does the technical assistant, the 5-year term of the technical assistant start at the end of the 3-year term for the community grant? Or is there overlap, or do they start at the same time, or what's the staging, I guess you would call it?
Yeah, they should be contiguous. So we plan to issue the solicitations in around the same time period and start them as soon as we can get the grant recipient selected and signed up, as well as the technical assistance provider, which is probably multiple providers, not just one. But then we would start those at the same time. One of the elements of the grant is also kind of ongoing feedback to the services that we're getting from the technical assistance program in case we need to adjust that scope over time based on how well it's working.
Thank you. Other member comments? Member Vice Chair Souza.
Oh, thank you. I imagine, let me ask a question first. Are the hubs going to be focused mostly on commercial, or are they going to be residential? That's the first question. And second, are we going to be looking at, residential electrical service that would need to be managed, because we don't want somebody to be turning on their pool pump or something if there's a resilience hub, type thing, just as you would put storage together. Are these the things that are going to be discussed during these initial startup?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The second question I think was a little garbled, but let me answer the first question first. The resilience hubs, we expect to be more kind of community-based organization, nonprofit sited than residential or commercial like private sector. But I think that will come out also of kind of the definition process of what are resilience hub and what are they trying to serve.
Yeah, great. And I mean, the second question, I'm sorry, it's so noisy in here. The second question was based on a more of a technical evaluation of battery production and the demand from different customers or people on that particular grid. And that's probably something that will need to be discussed at some point. I don't know if it's necessary at this point to talk about it. Thank you. It's very interesting to me. I'm very excited to hear about this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other clarifying questions from the CAC members? I see one hand raised from the attendees. Yes, Adrian.
Great, thank you. Bradley Cleveland, you're recognized for 3 minutes. Oh, wait.
Draw. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm sorry. Do you hear me?
Welcome.
Hello?
Yes, hello, we can hear you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So this looks like a very exciting program, and I have a couple questions regarding it. One is, given the money that you're setting aside for the third part of this, the $40 million, do you have any idea of how many potential projects could be developed with that funding? And secondly, what size of hubs in terms of the PV systems and battery storage? Obviously, it is going to vary based on the site, but do you have a ballpark of what you're looking at for that? And then finally, the time frame for these three parts. Does the third part in terms of the solar storage incentives, is that going to be starting immediately, or is that following some of the grant and the technical assistance, and then they follow sequentially? So those are my couple questions. Thank you.
If JP, you want to answer some of those questions, that's fine. If you have some answers or not, it's up to you.
Sure. So we have done some modeling of the size of solar and storage based on the data that we have today of solar and storage projects that have been installed. And the sample size is pretty low because solar storage has only been maybe 10% of the attachment rate being the frequency with which a solar system is installed with a battery as well. But we do have that modeled, and some of the modeling on that will be what we talk about when we bring this to future board meetings and executive committee meetings. It's a little too early right now, but we will propose some numbers associated with those projects. So that we will be providing kind of those answers. The data that we have is probably not Resilience Hub focused, more just solar and storage from a commercial perspective, but it's kind of the best data that we've got so far. And then as far as timeframe goes, we expect to issue the grant and technical assistance request for proposals in the March timeframe, and hopefully bring them on board, early in kind of the July area. As far as the incentive program, we're planning to get approval on that at the April board meeting, and would plan to roll the program live after that. It's a pretty serious endeavor from a programmatic setup standpoint. So I see that happening certainly in the second half of the year, as far as when we'll be able to get that going, and certainly a schedule of rolling that program live is something that we'll be building and planning to provide some visibility to the board too as we go.
Thank you. Member Henry?
Yes. First of all, this is a great proposal or project. What I wanted to ask you, it's just to educate myself. I hesitated to ask you, but I think I'm going to ask you. How do you can you just tell me briefly, battery storage? How does solar energy get into I know it's more complicated, but how does it get into the battery? Can you, I'm sorry to ask such a naive question, but
Sure. So if you can think about like a residential use case, just for simplicity, where somebody has say a 6 kilowatt solar system on their roof and a 12 kilowatt hour battery on the side of their house, that solar system may generate about, in the summer, 5 kilowatt hours of, or 5 kilowatts per kilowatt peak. So about 30 kilowatt hours a day, 6 kilowatts times 5 kilowatt hours a day. A lot of that's going to go into just reducing the customer's demand on site. So that's kind of the first use case. And then after that, it either gets exported to the grid and is used by the neighbors, or with solar, it can get stored into the battery. And so you're generating that solar electricity. It's being used to charge the battery up. And then over the course of the evening, when the sun goes down, that battery is then used to continue to reduce the demand at the site, basically to zero. You're kind of zeroing out the meter so that you're not exporting the batteries energy into the grid. You're just using it to manage the on-site load so that the meter is not spinning. And that can happen over multiple hours or all the way to the morning time based on how much on-site load there is. And so battery systems are basically now built to optimize for that. They see what is on, the refrigerator comes on, more electricity comes out of the battery to power the refrigerator. When the refrigerator goes off, it just stays in the battery for later use. And so we're kind of building this program to capitalize on that operation, because it's in the evening when people come home that their load goes up and our load goes up. And then over the course of the evening, there is, less and less carbon-free energy that we can go and buy, because most of our new renewables are coming from solar. And so we're able to use that then to reduce our energy procurement over the course of those hours.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Souza.
Sorry, this is so fascinating. First, I want to say that have you considered, has any of the other organizations, are there best practices yet in place for some resilience hubs that are already in place? I think you kind of touched upon that. It's mostly in a commercial situation, but I mean, are other, say, Peninsula Clean Energy and some of the others already thinking about that as well? And second, is it possible, we have a lot of electric cars. I have 3. Well, my family has 3. And what would that be, maybe a potential resource for filling in those nighttime hours? But anyway, this stuff burns, and so I just really am fascinated by it. So if you have any answers, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think on your first question, Vice Chair Souza, this is still an emerging area where kind of case studies and best practices are going to be valuable. So that's within the scope of our request of the grantee, is to help us identify what those best practices are around resilience hub development, community engagement, and kind of what's necessary to build these resilience hubs in our community. So that's something that we will certainly do. I also, we talk amongst CCAs quite a bit. We've partnered with other CCAs on some of our resilience programs like Resilient Home. But I don't have any examples from the other CCAs other than similar things to we're doing, like our municipal resilience program is something that other CCAs are doing as well. Certainly something we'll look into. And then electric cars, sure, each electric car has kind of a 60 to 90 kilowatt hour battery, and a normal household battery is about 10 to 12 kilowatt hours. So car batteries in electric vehicles are a very sizable resource. There's pretty significant constraints around just plugging them into your house and making them work that way. I do think that's something that we'll be looking at over the time span of our decarbonization efforts over the next couple of decades, but it's not something that we have, at least in scope, for this piece of work.
All right, I see we have 2 more public comments, 3 public comments. We'll come back to them in a second. Just a clarification for my own insight, we'll go back to the public comment in a few seconds. On the storage side, do we look at technologies and best, what kind of technology we want to use? I know there's existing batteries that use lithium ion, but there's other ones that use lithium ion phosphate and all these emerging technologies. Is AVA going to really look at technologies that are more reliable or proven, or is there something of storage that you're looking down the line that you want to leverage more? I don't know if you're studying that right now.
We're certainly looking at the technologies that are being proposed for our Resilient Critical Facilities program. Within scope of the technical assistance is to provide some guidance on, bid reviews for these resilience hubs. So some element of kind of filtering for technologies that work or potentially don't, or at least providing some guidance if we're seeing proposals come back that are, technologies that are not viable or unsafe, is certainly something that we would consider.
Thank you for clarifying that. I see we can go through the three attendees, and then hopefully if there are any other comments, we'll be able to move on to the next item. So, Adrian.
Great, thank you. Audrey Ichinose, you recognize for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Audrey Ichinose, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. Actually, I was looking at the slides, and I wondered about reporting requirements, just so that you're monitoring once your CBO is selected for this grant. What kinds of regular reporting you'll require, both to the staff as well as to the board and CAC. I guess it seems that there's no requirement there, but maybe are these sort of standard parts of contracts? So thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
So we're looking at reporting requirements by the CBOs or standard requirements, or how often. I think I heard be discussed. Is that what I heard as well? For the public comment. So you're asking the CBOs to report out on a quarterly basis?
Sure. I think there's 3 public, maybe
Do
one.
we want to take them all at once, or do you want to put your
Just in
preference?
case there's
Okay.
overlap, and then I can
Right.
try to answer them
Perfect.
efficiently.
Thank you. I will take a second public comment.
Great, thank you. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you recognize for 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Jessica Tovar on behalf of the East Bay Clean Power Alliance. First, I want to thank you because we have been asking for a Resilience Hub program since September 9th of 2020. Technically before then, but really hitting home the day that we had an inundation of extreme smoke in the middle of the pandemic and a heat wave and rolling blackouts. And at the same time, we happen to be hosting a webinar discussion featuring many community-based organizations and their efforts for, resilience efforts in the community, a lot of which are mostly mutual aid, but also involve some more coordinated efforts. And so I want to appreciate the staff and JP specifically for reaching out, A, for holding a community meeting last year, and B, for responding and communicating specifically with Local Clean Energy Alliance and other community orgs. But I wanted to know, what is the timeline to give this feedback? By when do you need your feedback on this? And then one of the other things is I want to also address the process. I think we brought this up before. In community innovation grants in the past have always included a member of the community advisory committee working with a member of the board as well as staff to field applications and decide who gets the grant, or in this case, it's really more of a solicitation than it is a grant, considering the scope of work. And then one of the other things that I have brought up before that is still an issue is the offering of smaller grants to really help smaller organizations in terms of their readiness and organizing around resilience hubs. So while you're offering 100,000, we would like to see smaller grants of 50,000 be also included, and just noting that the work it's going to take will definitely need more resources to go to community-based organizations to make sure that this work happens, and that we're compensating people for their time and energy. The last thing, just a quick comment around the car battery. I would suggest that if anybody who does have a car battery, that you utilize that in the event of a crisis, of a power shutoff, not just for your home, but for your neighbors. This is the type of mutual aid that our community groups have been doing to really kind of think about out of the box about how to help each other. until we actually get those microgrids built on our resilience hubs in the community. Thank you so much, and clean power to the people.
Jessica.
Thank you. Chris Menachem Shirley, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Unmute. Thanks, everyone. Just a quick question. Appreciate all the comments. I was wondering if there's been any involvement. PG&E has 2 programs for community microgrids, the community microgrid enablement program and the the microgrid incentive program. The incentive program was launched October last year. And I was wondering, and basically it incentivizes for gear to be placed at certain nodes to isolate and create islands around these resilient hubs, these larger hubs, rather than sort of specific behind the meter hubs of small organizations creating a larger network of shared solar and storage power throughout a community. Something that could be and basically the microgrid incentive program plugs in a PG&E technical review to provide all the technical overview, and then also it actually pays dollar for dollar for any of the equipment required to deploy those microgrid pieces. And one of the things that I thought was most interesting is that projects that are already have behind the meter assets situated at the site could sort of advance in the grant process because there's less incentive dollars going for actual generation assets because they're already existing. And then the incentive dollars are just paying for isolation assets, reclosures, things like that to network and create this sort of island of a community hub. I'm wondering if that was explored or is at all strategic in the resilience program and the resiliency hubs that Ava's rolling out.
Thank you very much. Any other raised hands? I see one of our members had her hand raised but not reduced. Do you want to address the public comment, JP?
Yeah, sure. So there will be reporting requirements, and that's what I listed out in the actions for the CBO, the best practices, the community feedback forums, and providing kind of sites as potential sites for development as resilience hubs. Those are all forms of kind of feedback and reporting. So this grant is very much around providing guidance as well as potential sites for resilience hubs. As far as the community innovation grants, recognize that LCA has requested smaller community innovation grants. The community innovation grants that we got authorization from the board to provide are these larger multi-year grants for the purposes that we've discussed before around providing ongoing multi-year support and providing sufficient funding for capacity building, running new programs within CBOs. So I think that's trying to continue to address that question. Chris, as far as the other programs, we see our program as additive to other programs. If there's other incentives out there, we want to be going and getting those other incentives, and we would have our incentives be stackable associated with that. So part of the grant writing element of the technical assistance program is how to go get additional funds. If that's PG&E funds, we'll certainly go and get them as well.
Thank you, very nice. Appreciate that, JP. Let's see. Any other dialogue from the CAC members?
I have a question. Well, also wanted to thank JP for bringing this in. Sounds like a great projects and sort of thing that everybody had hoped EBCE could bring in. Started. you make it sound like it's net metering only. Is that true? And why is it limited to net metering only? I would expect other community energy would like to have lots of batteries that had extra storage capability that could export energy to the grid beyond what the household or the building or the community center.
Yeah, and so net metering enables that. It's the only mechanism of interconnecting behind the meter system that allows for easy export back into the system. So that's the purpose of using net metering as the tariff, because it allows for people to store renewable energy on site and to dispatch it to either reduce their consumption or to export it to the grid.
So, but I'm saying if they, if their system is 6 kilowatt hours a day, just for round numbers, but they only use 3 kilowatt hours per day, wouldn't AVA like those additional 3 kilowatt hours?
Sure, there's nothing, that would be a net metered system. There's nothing excluding
So they would
that
get,
system.
but my understanding is net metering means you can't export more than you use over a year or balanced out over the month.
So net metering doesn't preclude someone from doing that. You're not financially incentivized to do that. And so, there are some limitations around the size of a system that PG&E will let somebody interconnect based on the on-site load. But putting that aside, there's nothing that precludes someone from exporting, more into the system. They aren't compensated as much through the new net metering rules. The program that we're putting in place is meant to actually increase the incentives for what the new net metering rules are going to compensate. So, the system we're putting in place does not preclude the type of system that you are discussing.
Okay. And, but you're not proposing to add enough incentive to get people to intentionally build those systems where they're able.
Correct. We're not planning to do that.
Is it just that that's too many dollars per kilowatt hour at this point until storage technologies prices drop a lot more, or is it more legal and regulatory issues?
Yeah, I think it's not so much legal and regulatory as like building off the systems and the sales tools and the solar industry and how it kind of sizes and sells systems, and keying off that to incentivize more storage, but not necessarily disrupt the market so that you're completely overbuilding every roof so that each roof is producing 2 or 3 times more solar than that roof needs. That would be expensive. And so it's just not how this program has been structured.
So if this is sort of a longer term question, if at some point solar and especially storage, because it's relatively new technology, becomes, at what point does it become cheap enough that it's worth it for Ava Community Energy to stop buying batteries in the desert?
Probably a long way. Your residential and commercial PPAs are still 20 to 30 cents a kilowatt hour, and our large scale solar developments are a tenth of that, or a little bit more. So there's a large decline that would need to happen in rooftop solar to approach that cost.
And I don't see that big of a drop there, but on storage, the technology is a lot younger than solar technology, so I'm expecting significant drops in price over the next couple decades.
True. But that will also happen in the large scale solar as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the members? Just one thing I just want to clarify, understand. The dollar amounts you have for community grants, technical assistance and storage incentives, that was the direction of the board, the $40 million, the $2 million, the $300,000. Is that board direction, or at least that's what's been somewhat directed and you're looking to get some board approval and the RFPs? Is that what's happening?
So the community grants were approved in last year's budget, and those were around $300,000 for kind of 3-year terms. So that budget amount and the community grants were already approved. We also had $2 million in last year's approved budget for technical assistance for resilience hubs. So those two pieces were already approved. The allocation of the budget surplus was, we were given guidance in the previous board meeting, and that's 40% of the surplus. And so we, right now that's $40 million. Again, that final number is still TBD at the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you. And the end of the fiscal year is this June?
End of June.
End of June. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that reminder and clarification. All right, with anything else, I think we need to move forward. I see one hand up. I think we maybe give our local Clean Energy Alliance a last call, if you may. Is that fine, Adrian?
Okay, sure. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you're recognized for a second 3 minutes?
2 minutes, please.
2 minutes. Okay, hold on just 1 second. Recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. That was really, I really appreciate that. I actually ran to my computer. Didn't realize you were going to accept it. But I just did have a quick question again for JP. I didn't hear what was maybe like the time frame, like to give feedback around specifically the solicitation that you mentioned at the $300,000 grant, if you will. Yeah, I think that was the other part of my question that I didn't hear. I know you're trying to post it pretty soon. It sounds like by March, which is right around the corner. Is there a specific date?
We don't have a date. We've been gathering feedback from the community, bringing it to the CAC, so we could run it by you all as our other community grants. We're building these out internally and planning to issue them once we've completed them. So that is expected in March.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, JP, for that information. I look forward to seeing this, and I think the CSC is very supportive of this effort. You received some feedback and some clarifying questions, and I've summarized some notes. So thank you. The next item, I think, for our agenda is going to be a long-term contract for approval. This is a CAC action. We have one requesting Intersect Easley PPA approval. Who's speaking on that? Are you also speaking on that, or no?
Hi, I'll be speaking on it. I'm Karen Lee, Power Resources Manager.
Hello, welcome, Karen. Thank you for being in the room.
Thank you.
Hold on 1 second. Oh, yes.
How much time do you need for this item, do you think?
Probably 5 to 10 minutes to go over the slides and then just any time to answer questions.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, please.
Thanks. So nice to meet you all. My name is Karen Lee. I'm a Power Resources Manager with Ava Community Energy. Next slide, Adrian. Thanks. So most of the slides you all have seen before. They were presented with the previous long-term contracts, but I will just do a quick overview. Next slide again. So last April of 2023, Ava went out to market to solicit long-term clean resources. The goal was to provide energy hedge, resource adequacy, and environmental attributes. We did both quantitative and qualitative assessments and evaluations of the projects. Quantitative evaluations looked at the contract cost, as well as the benefits we would be receiving with respect to energy, resource adequacy, and those environmental attributes. On the qualitative side, we looked at counterparty and project risk, location, workforce development, and portfolio and technology diversification factors. We did make sure that any shortlisted projects would have a union labor and prevailing wage. Next slide, Adrian. This is just describing the types of products that we solicited, kind of different combinations of the energy, resource adequacy, and environmental attributes. We can go to the next slide. Thanks. So like I said earlier, we did the quantitative analysis, which produced the net present value. And then we also performed the qualitative assessment, which looked at the risk associated with the counterparty, any development risk associated with site control, permitting, and interconnection. And then we also kind of looked at the fit of, what does this new resource bring to our portfolio? What is it adding? Is it helping us diversify kind of contract terms or diversify from a technology perspective? Next slide. And again, I think this has been presented to the CAC, but there's since COVID
I'm sorry to interrupt for a second. We need to take a
Oh,
quick recess, about 5 to 7 minutes. Just some technical difficulties. So you please, we're gonna take a quick 5 to 7 minute recess. It's 7:18. We're gonna have to reconvene at 7:25. Apologies for having some technical difficulties. So just please hold. If you are dropped off, please rejoin shortly. But we're gonna go ahead and pause the recording. We'll jump back on in a few minutes, okay? So 7:25, we'll see how we get that going. One small technical matter. Thank you.
That means
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
There's still.
Waiting for the presentation to come back up.
There'll be a few more minutes. My laptop's not. Okay, my apologies. This took a second to power on. Okay, but I'm afraid that the power is so low. All right. Okay. Okay. The restaurant did not. There was a mistake on the restaurant side.
No, that's okay, because the jank machine's not working. That's okay. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It was actually there.
I went over there, but I can't get it to work. That's all right. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we'll love it. Oh, how about if I?
Your kind that you like, coffee, nothing in a box, peanut butter,
Right.
Whatever you want.
whatever you tell me. Do you prefer? I have everything.
Are we doing? Okay, great.
So I'll go.
I like the peanut butter, but whatever is extra, yeah. Okay,
Go at it.
well,
We should be back.
yeah, we'll pass them around, right? Yeah, right.
And we'll say,
One here.
Oh, these are,
And
I'll pass them. No, I'm not gonna eat all of these.
take as many as you want. What are we trying to do?
okay, we are back.
Ready,
Let me-
Chris?
Let me just get back to the slide that we were.
All right. Where's the
Okay.
returning after technical difficulties? The Ava Community Energy Committee Advisory Committee meeting of February 20th. And we're going to return back on item for the Interstate Power Solar Project for CAC approval. Karen Lee with the Ava Community Energy was presenting. My apologies for the interruption. You want to go ahead and pick up the presentation where you took off? You have the
Yeah,
floor.
no problem.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can you go back one slide?
Yes.
Yeah, and sorry, one more. Yeah, here we are. Oh,
All right.
yeah, can we go to overview of planned procurement? I think that's where we left off. Great, thank you. So just picking up from where we left off, these were the procurement targets when we released the RFO last year, up to 1,000 megawatts of nameplate capacity of generating resources. These are resources that could be solar, wind, hydro, or geothermal, and another 500 megawatts of storage capacity. So again, resources that are not generating anything new, they're not generating any environmental attributes or RECs, but they are providing other benefits. And we were aiming for online dates between 2025 and 30. Next slide. Yes, this is great. Just wanted to give a status update. So we're here in February. We have this one resource to be approved. We are trying to wrap up the negotiations for the 2023 RFO by this April. So we do plan to bring projects for approval up until April, possibly in the March meeting and April meetings. And subsequently after that, we do plan to go out to market again to continue to solicit these energy products. Next slide. Thanks. So just wanted to provide an overview of Intersect Power. They are the developer of the Easley Solar Project. Intersect has successfully brought 4 projects online in California and Texas, comprising 2.2 gigawatts of solar and 1.4 gigawatt hours of co-located storage. One of their values is to support US manufacturing, and so they do procure key components of their systems domestically, including solar panels and the steel. And we did want to highlight that AVA did contract with Intersect previously for the Oberon project. This project was successfully brought online last year, 2023. Next slide. So the Easley project is sited in state in Riverside County. It was selected via the 2023 RFO or request for offers that I described earlier. We will be contracting for 150 megawatts of nameplate capacity. We will be contracting for energy and environmental attributes. One nuance is for the sellers' financing purposes, there are 2 project companies that are set up. So we will be procuring 75 megawatts from IP Easley LLC and the second 75 megawatts from IP Easley 2 LLC. This will be a 10-year contract, and earlier I mentioned portfolio diversity, and so one thing that we found attractive is the term of the contract. Most of our long-term resources are 15 and 20-year contracts, so this does provide some diversification. We expect the project to reach commercial operation in March of 2027. We think this date is pretty firm and unlikely to slip because the developer actually plans to reach operation by end of 2026. So there is some buffer there. Regarding the development of the project, they do have firm site control and will execute on interconnection by the end of the year. I also wanted to describe a special permitting process they went through, set up by the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. It's called ELDP, or Environmental Leadership Development Project. And the project had to meet a lot of criteria to go through this special permitting process. One of which was investing over $100 million in California. They're actually investing close to $300 million through this project. Another criteria is that the project will not result in net additional greenhouse gas emissions. And so Intersect went through, kind of the process and provided documentation to the state to meet all of the criteria. Finally, regarding workforce, the project will be paying prevailing wages and executing a 5-craft project labor agreement, or PLA. We did want to mention that when this project was shortlisted, we did not have the board-approved policy. We did bring this to the Intersect team pretty late in negotiations. They were, they worked with us and will be making good faith efforts to meet some of the other requirements, including the apprentice to journey person hours, local hires and targeted hire program, and contracting with small local or emerging businesses. Another aspect I wanted to highlight is they've committed to kind of providing feedback to us, which we think will be really important. This is all really new, and we're still kind of defining, how do we track these things? What are the metrics that we're tracking? And so they've committed to work with us as they're, as they're constructing through their progress reports. All right, next slide. And this is just for review. This is AVA's long-term resource portfolio summary. Again, if you look at the term column, you can see that most of these are 15 and 20-year terms. So the 10-year energy plus rec or environmental attribute project that is easily will offer some diversification. And then you can kind of also see, with respect to COD, easily will fit in kind of towards the end there in 2027, early 2027. So that's it for the presentation. I'm happy to respond to any questions folks may have.
Thank you very much for the presentation regarding the opportunity to hear about 100 megawatts of energy in Riverside.
I'm so sorry. If you could move your mic, it's very directional. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much for the presentation. I will look to the CEC members for any clarifying questions from the presentation. If not, then I would move over to public comment, if any. CEC members, any clarifying questions? Any comments from public? I see a members from Metathon. Sorry, please, you have the floor.
Sure, thanks, Chair. Hi, Karen. This is a good project, seems like. We don't have visibility into the price, but it seems like a firm project. Could you tell me about the 10-year term? How do y'all decide on the 10-year versus 12 versus 7 versus 15? Is it the first time we are doing a 10-year transaction, and why a shorter term?
Yeah, absolutely. Adrian, do you mind sharing the last slide portfolio summary? I think that would be really helpful here. So one of the compliance obligations that AVA has is to contract for new resources, and this is a CPUC, Public Utilities Commission program and requirement called the midterm reliability requirement. And so all load serving entities in California have to contract for new resources, and they have to be long-term contracts. So 10 years is actually the minimum to meet that CPUC compliance requirement. So that's kind of the, I think how we approached the minimum term. As you can see here, yeah, we have executed, there's the 10-year, for example, 10-year wind contract with Pattern. So we have done it in the past, but I think we've had a history of executing more 15 to 20-year term contracts. And so we felt this 10-year contract would offer some diversification.
One follow-up question, would a 10-year contract be more expensive than a 15-year or vice versa? What is the direction of the price depending if the shorter term contract?
Yeah, that's a great question. Generally, we would expect lower pricing associated with longer terms. So generally, I would expect to see a higher price for, say, a 10-year and a lower price for 20-year. However, we are, we work with various industry experts to model what is the forecasted electricity pricing in the future. Obviously, it's a very complex and difficult task, but we do that, and that's how we, kind of model in, well, maybe the developer is offering us a discount for a 20-year term, but maybe that actually doesn't look as good to us in our model or in our net present value analysis based on the forecast we see. So that's just like a glimpse of the type of analysis we're doing when we look at these projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair Souza, you have the floor.
My mic, okay, thank you. I'm glad that there's some local resources. It's been a sore point that a lot of these projects are outside our local area. In this case, you can see by the chart, it's like Alameda and San Joaquin that are east, are in East Bay, and with Ava Community Energy. And I know that you mentioned that there was going to be some reporting. And I would be very interested in seeing the reporting as far as how many local folks are hired and the type of jobs that they're hired for, and just building the local community. That would be wonderful to see, and if we can just kind of highlight that from our end, we would be very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to clarify with respect to the local, so the project is sited in Riverside County, which, is in California, but not that close to Alameda or San Joaquin County. So the seller will be making a good faith effort to work with, I think there's a small emerging business requirement. So they will, the local aspect will be defined by in the area local to the project site and local to Ava's service territory. So I did want to make that clarification.
Thank you.
Other member comments?
Yeah, Jim
Member
Luce
Lutz.
here. One is a very technical question, and in a past life job, I did net present value calculations, and there was a very funny detailed point in there where you say you took a weighted average of the P5, the P50, and the P95. It looks like the P5 is weighted as much as the P50 and the P95, and that doesn't that, I'm not sure I'm reading that right, and I'm not sure I actually know what P5, P50, and P95 is, but it seems like that weighting's a little strange.
Yeah, I can talk about this. It's on slide 5 of this presentation, evaluation process, if that's helpful to folks. So yeah, so P50 is what I would describe as the median. So you know, again, we work with industry experts to do this kind of modeling. So if they run a lot of different scenarios, we would expect half of those scenarios to result in pricing above the P50 and the other half to be lower than the P50. So the P50 is, I think of it as the median. The P5 represents in 95% of those scenarios, the modeled result is greater than this price. I'm sorry, I think it's lower than this price. And so the P5 represents, you know, an edge case where likely multiple things are kind of going off in the energy market. But the reason we've weighted it this way is to provide a more kind of conservative forecast. And we did work with our, you know, management and risk oversight committees to develop these assumptions.
Okay. I had a couple more general questions. How much more energy and the other resources and attributes you guys, Ava is purchasing, how much more do we need? Are we at like, you know, 25% of what we need? And, you know, for the 10, 20 years, what's the planning horizon? At some point, these are all look like renewable contracts, so they should keep running until their term ends. Are we close to full, or are we like at 5%?
We're somewhere in between. You know, with new communities joining, Stockton and Lathrop especially, you know, we are really taking those numbers into consideration and how we look outward. The other piece of that is when individual customers or entire municipalities decide to opt up to Renewable 100 to make their default plan Renewable 100, and that really increases the you know, amount of renewables we need in the portfolio. So those are two of kind of the, you know, two driving factors for this procurement and why we need more renewables.
So do you expect, you know, like 10 years down the line, you'll only be purchasing to replace contracts that are ending? I guess I'm asking you, when are you going to put yourself out of a job?
That's a good question. I think, you know, 10 years down the line, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Again, JP just, you know, his last presentation was on, you know, resiliency, but JP's team is also doing a lot of work with vehicle electrification, and we do expect load increases, right? I mentioned Stockton and Lathrop, so those are new cities joining us, but there's also, if nobody new joins us, we expect there to be, you know, people are electrifying their kitchens, electrifying their vehicles, and so there's a need for to procure for that new load. And a lot of those customers do want to be 100% renewable.
Okay, so there isn't nobody's actually tried to figure out what the answer to that question is yet. It sounds like.
The question being, in 10 years, will we be kind of fully procured and we'll just have to?
Right, I mean, it's just sort of a philosophical question. At some point, AVA should be fully procured. And
Yes, yes, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I do think at some point we will reach a more kind of steady state.
Right.
Right now, we're looking at the next, kind of 5, 7, 10 years and anticipating a large need for renewables.
Okay. The other question is more related to what Mickey was asking, is what percent of the resources and the dollars are we spending within AVA community territory? And I guess that would be off your portfolio slide. And, could add up the nameplate capacities, but I can't do that in my head.
Yeah, I think the calculation would be a lot more complicated, in our solicitation. One of the qualitative factors is the local,
right.
the local element, right? We are interested in new clean projects within our service territory. And unfortunately, there's just not that many. And we've, maybe tried to shortlist some and it didn't work out. So there's very few offered to begin with. And some of them, just didn't make it to the final agreement stage. So, I think in next year's or this year's 2024 RFO, we will again prioritize those local projects. Unfortunately, it's hard to be compliant with, for example, the CPUC orders for new clean procurement if we're only looking within our service territory. We have to look outside to be compliant.
Yeah, I understand. Just eyeballing it, it looks like we'd be at maybe 5% at the high end of, at the very most, and probably even lower than that, given variability and all of generation is purchased within AVA territory. So.
Thank you, Member Lutz. Member Swaminathan, and is there another question? You have your hand raised still? Or did you want to move the item?
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand. Sorry.
No worries. All right, so no other panelists and no other attendees do I see hands raised. In order to be efficient, this is an action item for the CAC. Is there interest from this committee here to move this item for recommendation, or are there other concerns?
I'll move that we recommend it.
Thank you. I'll look for a second.
I'll second, Member Landry.
Thank you.
Great.
Any other dialogue or comments? All right, I see one hand raised. We'll take that hand, and then we'll, if there's no other comments, we'll then move for the vote.
The time, 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
We can still do 3.
Okay. Steve Scala, you recognize for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Steve Scala, resident of Fremont. Just a quick clarifying question. this project is in Riverside, which is quite far away. CA ISO has plans for transmission line improvements, and in the press has been numerous reports of grid congestion. Have we confirmed that CA ISO has the transmission capacity to move this power to the service area without any upgrades, or do they need to complete some infrastructure improvements in order to move this power to the service area? Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, so I can respond. So the resource will have deliverability, and that is a California ISO concept that represents that if a resource has deliverability, it can deliver to anywhere else on the CAISO grid. So to answer your question, yes, there will be capacity on the transmission grid for this project.
Thank you for that comment. Thank you. Other comments from or questions from the panelists? Excuse me, from our CAC. I'm just looking at the screen. Yes, member.
Yes, I do want to emphasize, I am supporting this action item, but again, to the extent that we can do local development and local projects, you know, continue to look, but I know it's difficult, but I just want to underscore that again. Thank you.
Thank you, member. With that, I see no other hands raised from our advisory committee members. We'll do a roll call vote. Adrian?
Great, thank you very much. Member Landry?
Yes.
Member Eldred?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Swaminathan?
Yes.
Member Lakshman?
Yes.
Member Carr?
Yes.
Member Lutz?
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza?
Yes.
Chair Hernandez?
Yes.
Motion's approved.
It threw me off for a second when I was like waiting for my name as vice chair, but then it wasn't anymore. So I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for that item. I think we have one more item. It is about 8 o'clock. For some reason, there's a clock, so we're gonna try to see how we can move through this item and then move forward. Disadvantaged communities, item C8, green tariff, community solar green tariff power purchase agreement. It is an action item, and it talks about this DAC-GT CSG blah, 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 blah approval. So we'll look through what that means, and who will be presenting?
Eleanor Smith, the Account Rates and Equity Manager at AVA.
There's a bit of echo, so hopefully we will hear you better. Thank you. Eleanor Smith?
And I'll be presenting alongside Shannon.
Shannon Rivers. Thank you very much, both with AVA Community Energy. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Adrian will be your. Okay, so hi everyone. I'll be presenting today on the project approvals for the Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff, DAC-GT, and Community Solar Green Tariff, CSGT. Next slide, please. I'll start by providing a background and overview of the two programs, and then I'll hand it over to Shannon to discuss the RFO process and the projects that we're proposing and seeking approval from the board on. Next item, please. Slide. In 2018, the California Public Utilities Commission, or CPUC, created the DAC-GT and CSGT programs, which promote the development of renewable generation in disadvantaged communities. A disadvantaged community is categorized by the CPUC as a disproportionately vulnerable community or census tract using a combination of health, environmental, and economic factors using a tool called Cal EnviroScreen that was developed by the California EPA. Both of these programs offers customers living in a disadvantaged community access to 100% renewable energy supply and a 20% off discount on their total electric bill. So customers will see that 20% discount on their monthly bill. In December 2022, AVA issued its DAC-GT and CSGT request for offers, RFO, to procure eligible renewable energy projects for the DAC-GT and CSGT programs. Tomorrow, we're going to be asking the board for approval on 5 power purchase agreements or PPAs for these projects. They are solar projects located in Tracy, Oakland, San Leandro, and Hayward, and we're working with developer Prologis on these contracts. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, sorry, previous slide.
One more slide.
The CPUC approval and cost recovery.
Should I continue?
Sorry, slide 4.
Go back. I see.
Thank you. So as noted, this is a CPUC program. What that means is that the CPUC makes AVA whole on program costs. That includes above market generation or procurement costs, the 20% discount on the customer's electric bill, and any program administration and marketing costs. Each year in February, AVA submits a request for cost recovery through the CPUC's annual budget letter process. In order to make sure that we receive that full cost recovery, we must implement the program consistent with CPUC guidelines, and we will be submitting a formal request with these executed PPAs to the CPUC for approval following tomorrow's board meeting. Next slide, please. The DAC-GT program has been branded by AVA as the Solar Discount Program, and the CSGT program has been branded by AVA as the Community Solar Program. The DAC-GT program has a CPUC megawatt allocation of 5.72 megawatts. So that means we're able to service a little over 2,900 customers with that 20% discount. This program is live. We launched it in September 2021 using a qualifying interim solar resource. We auto-enrolled eligible customers into the program. The solicitation for this new resource will allow us to transition away from our interim resource to a dedicated AVA resource that's located in our service territory. For CSGT, our megawatt allocation is 1.56 megawatts and will provide the discount to approximately 800 customers. We'll be able to enroll customers in this program once the projects are complete. Both the DAC-GT and CSGT sites must be located in a disadvantaged community. Residential customers who are in the program, for the most part, must be enrolled in CARA and CARA, and they must live in a disadvantaged community. The CSGT program has additional community-based requirements, such as the customers must be located, customers serviced with the 20% bill discount must be located within 5 miles of the site, and the project must have a community sponsor. In this case, the community sponsors will be the City of San Leandro and City of Hayward. The purpose of the city sponsor or the community sponsor is to really get the word out about the programs, help with enrollments if needed, and to make sure that project development aligns with community priorities. And now I'll hand off the presentation to Shannon to talk a little bit more about the RFO process.
Thank you, Eleanor. Hi, I'm Shannon Rivers. I'm a Power Resources Manager, and I'm going to give an overview of the RFO process on the next slide, Adrian. So the objectives of the RFO were to secure up to 5.72 megawatts of solar resources for DAC GT and 1.56 megawatts of solar resources for CSGT, and have these resources paired with storage. In addition, the solar resources offered in this RFO must be located in a DAC in AVA's service area. AVA received offers from 2 developers, and the offers were evaluated on criteria such as location eligibility, meaning the project was located in a DAC in AVA's service territory, resource eligibility, project size, project economics, a workforce development plan, and developer experience. The selection committee selected projects that optimized program goals, project volume, and geographic targets. Ultimately, the 5 projects selected were from the same developer, Prologis. And these projects fulfill the entire allotted program amounts, the 5.72 megawatts for DAC and the 1.56 megawatt for CSGT. These projects were located in disadvantaged communities as defined by the CPUC and were located in AVA's service territory. In addition, Prologis committed to utilizing union labor, paying prevailing wages, and to prioritize local and targeted hires. The selected projects are for solar only, as AVA was unable to come to commercially acceptable terms with Prologis for paired solar and storage resources. So who is Prologis? The next slide will talk about the company overview. Prologis Energy LLC, a subsidiary of Prologis Inc., is a developer, owner, and long-term operator of clean energy facilities. Prologis Inc. is an operator of logistics real estate with over 1 billion square feet of warehouse space. This uniquely puts Prologis in a position to offer rooftop solar across our service territory. Also, Prologis has been developing solar since 2007, and they have experience working with other CCAs on solar discount programs. So now that we have an overview of Prologis, we'll go into the projects they proposed. Next slide, please. This table details the projects proposed for execution. So all projects, as mentioned previously, will be developed by Prologis. All projects will have a 20-year term. And you'll see on the first 2 lines of this table, the 2 projects listed are part of the DAC GT program and are located in Tracy, California. And they have an expected commercial operation date of June 2026. The third project listed is also part of the DAC GT program. It's located in Oakland and has the earliest COD of the 5 projects in December of 2025. The last 2 projects listed in that table are part of the community solar program, and they both have a COD in April of 2026. There's a project located in San Leandro and one in Hayward. I do want to mention that it's possible that we will come back to the board in the future requesting approval of alternative sites in the event that these projects do not receive interconnection approval. The alternative sites that we would potentially swap would have the same characteristics as this current portfolio of projects that we're sharing today. Next slide, please. All right, well, so this last slide is just reiterating the action requested that we're looking for the board to approve and authorize the CEO to execute the agreements. And that concludes this presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll look to the members for any clarifying questions regarding the presentation or proposal in front of us. There's one hand raised from a panelist. Member Swaminathan.
Hi, Shannon and Eleanor. Thanks for presenting. My question is, how did we come up with the goal of 5.7 megawatts and 1 point so many megawatts. And then what is the dollar estimate of the above market cost, which requires CPUC approval?
The 5.7 megawatts and 1.56 megawatts for these programs come from a CPUC directive. So that's the number of megawatts we pursued. If we had gone above those megawatts, we would not be eligible to receive cost recovery for any additional megawatts that are from this program.
Okay. And then the question about how much is the above market cost associated with this procurement, which will require CPUC approval?
I don't know if I have that off the top of my head, but I can look that up.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other comments from the public at the moment. No raised hands. Any other clarifying questions from our members?
I had one other question. The 20% discount, is that on the energy charge or does it include the distribution charge as well?
It includes both the distribution and the transmission, distribution, and generation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just what I think I heard is that we're going to commit to this, recommend for proposal for board approval, but they still have to go through the process to get the final approval or interconnection. Is that what I heard earlier?
The process will be that we'll submit these PPAs if they are approved for execution by the CEO to the CPUC for approval. And so that's the secondary step in this process.
And then just to reiterate the size of these nameplate solar projects, this is what we asked for and this is what we received, or they're larger or smaller than expected?
These project sizes, well, we had a total of about, I think, 7 projects offered, and this portfolio best met our needs by fulfilling the total amount in each category, the DAC 5 point something, and then the CSGT. So they were varying sizes, and this best met that total cap.
So it is meeting our recommendations. They are local projects, supporting the community, disadvantaged communities, and other opportunities to fill a need here in our community. Any other questions or clarifications from our board?
I'm just going to encourage you to move your microphone again closer to your mouth, and then just want to thank the staff for this. It appears that they also have an office in Tracy and Fremont. I don't know if you mentioned that. If you did, either way, good job. And we have to do public comment, right?
I finally have a hand raised, so I will take public comment now.
Great. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Jessica Tovar on behalf of East Bay Clean Power Alliance and Local Clean Energy Alliance. I remember some years back there were some issues with this community solar green tariff program, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it had to do maybe with the interconnection, and I don't know if that was a CPUC decision at the time or if there was difficulty with, PG&E. So I want to understand like why that didn't work out last time. And then my other question is, have you already identified community-based organizations in those communities to be the sponsor for this? You mentioned Tracy, San Leandro, and I'm missing one of them. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Only the CSGT program require a community sponsor, and that can be a nonprofit, a CBO, or the local government. So in this case, the community sponsor will be the city of San Leandro and city of Hayward and both those cities provided letters of commitment with the developer application. So we'll be working with those cities to make sure that the projects align with the community's interests. To address your other question, I believe was some of the challenges that we previously had getting developer bids, I think was the question. So we had issued an RFO in 2021 and for these projects and did not receive bids. Some of the challenges with these programs is finding developers who could meet the geographic requirements, which is site a project located in a disadvantaged community in EVA service territory, which is more limited. And fortunately, we were able to find developers this time who were uniquely posed to help us meet those requirements.
Thank you very much. A quick follow-up question. I noticed you mentioned they had an issue with pairing storage with solar. Are you able to elaborate further there, or is there an opportunity in the future to maybe evaluate that further with these proposals?
Yeah, I didn't. We had a hard time coming to commercially acceptable terms, and there was some risk with that as well because storage is not part of the cost recovery that the CPUC offers. So we were hesitant to move forward while one, not knowing if we would get cost recovery, and two, not agreeing with the commercially acceptable terms.
So what I'm hearing is there are a couple concerns there, but maybe something in the future that can be added on, possibly.
Possibly, yeah.
Thank you. Members from Mid-Town, please.
Yes, I have another question. We earlier talked about the Resiliency Center and developing Resiliency Center solar and storage. Could that project be coupled with this procurement to have both benefits? And if it's not cost recoverable, would that be brought into the umbrella of Resiliency Center? And do you see any opportunities to collaborate with the other project?
So was your first question about whether the resilience hubs could qualify in a DAC capacity or through the CPUC's cost recovery program? Or did I misunderstand?
No, yes, partly, but the projects which we didn't select, could they be accommodated under the resiliency program?
Okay, I don't know if there would still be valid projects for the Resilience Hub, but I'm sure that's something that we could look into. But again, so this RFO, the offers we received were from March. We received those bids in March of 2023, so they could be stale at this point. Those offers that we didn't select. I'm not too sure.
Okay, my broader question is, would those projects, do you think, or whoever is promoting the resiliency projects, would they be eligible for the resiliency projects as well?
I think that they do not meet this criteria, but I'll double check on that.
Hey, I would just add on the resiliency front. This is Howard. Sorry to chime in, but I know that Shannon's not individually focused on the Resilience Hub sort of initiative. So just a little additional insight I would share is, I think what we envision with the various the incentive structure for the Resilience Hub also includes some level of sort of access requirements for public some type of public services or such to the community. And the projects offered into the DAC, GT, or CSGT, they don't really offer that level, that component. We'd have to go back and revisit those other projects that weren't selected, but certainly these that have been selected, these are private sector owned land, and so they wouldn't be opened up to the community, unfortunately. So I think it's less likely they would be eligible for any resilience incentive.
Thanks, Howard.
I see that the Local Clean Energy Alliance has raised their hand again. Is that accurate for a second time?
Yes.
2 minutes, please, and I assume it's Jessica.
Great, thank you. The Local Clean Energy Alliance, you recognized for 2 minutes.
This is Jessica again, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. Eleanor and Shannon, thank you for your presentation. I'm curious about if there's going to be an opportunity for community-based organizations to be sponsors in the future. Like, I'm assuming maybe there'll be an opportunity to expand. And I do ask because we were initially signed up as a sponsor, and I imagine there were other organizations. And just because it feels like also a good opportunity for organizations to sponsor and community, to benefit from that discount in the surrounding location of the sponsor. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. There are no further hands raised.
Thank you. If you may answer to that or have any feedback, appreciate it.
Yeah, I can address that. I think there is an opportunity for CSGT to potentially work with CBOs on enrolling customers in that program. For our JAC-GT program, it's already fully subscribed there, so there may be less opportunity for that one, but certainly for CSGT.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, raised hands, I would entertain a motion to move this forward if interested by this CAC.
Motion by Member Eldred.
Thank you, Member Eldred. Do we have a second?
Lutz will second.
Let's will second. Roll call vote, please.
Great, thank you very much.
Unless there's no other discussion, my apologies. Yes.
Quickly, I want to support what Member Menathan suggested of using these sorts of contracts to get an idea of what the marginal cost of doing projects in Alameda and San Joaquin County is, so that we can have a sense of how much more expensive it is to do projects here than in Riverside County, say.
Thank you for that comment. All right, any other comments? Any other from the members? All right, if not, seeing none, 3, 2, 1, roll call.
Great, thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Eldred.
Yes.
Member Swaminathan.
Yes.
Member Lakshman has left the meeting. Member Carr.
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza.
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Measures approved.
Thank you very much. Moving to the last item of CAC member and staff announcements, including requests to place agendas, place items of future CAC agendas. Anything from staff? Yes.
One thing from staff, this is Kate Katie with Ava. I just wanted to mention bringing an item to a future CAC meeting regarding assigning staggered terms. This is just per the board's December action to establish staggered terms for both current and future members. So wanted to mention that briefly for a future
Something
agenda
we'll
item.
bring forth at the next meeting to discuss it?
Perhaps, yes, that'd be great.
Is that what you want to do? Is that what you're asking to do?
Yes, just to bring that to a future CAC meeting, yes.
Okay. We'll add that to the item to be considered. I
Thank
think that
you,
was
Chair.
part of the board action, was either to allow people to choose on their own or was going to be randomly done. Is that what I think was discussed at the last board meeting?
Yes, we were thinking about randomly assigning staggered term lengths of either one year or the standard two term,
And I think-
2 year.
And there was some concern about doing that versus having some opportunity to do it themselves, or yes or no? Okay. But we'll discuss it at the next meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Other member comments or items to bring forth by the future CC members? Member,
Yeah, I guess I'd like to have a discussion on the best way for the CAC to provide advice to the board. And I'm thinking the board, I've heard staff talk about things like updating the local business development plan or changing the rate structure, the recoveries in the rate structure to be recovery, not to be tied to PG&E's rates. And those, I would think the CAC should be providing advice to the board on those things, those sort of category of items prior to the board having to make a decision, and actually prior to the staff developing plans, that the CAC should provide guidance, and then the board should consider that guidance and provide direction to staff of, you know, we want our rate structure to incorporate these values, or, you know, we want the local business development plan to highlight these issues, or, you know. And it seems from what I've seen that many of these things come in, are driven by staff without any input from the board or from the advisory committee. So I wanted to include that.
So more about the approach of receiving and giving some updates or advice to the board versus being staff-driven, but rather us be able to percolate it up and having the conversation with the board and inferring them to driving them towards sort of some consideration, like you mentioned about recovery versus PG&E rates. Nothing stops you from reaching out to another board member and having that conversation. But while you were talking, I was thinking, well, could there be a joint meeting at some point between the CAC and the board to have dialogue about the things that are coming up? They normally have the retreat or discussions around strategy and agendas. Maybe there would be an opportunity to do something together.
Yeah, the whole topic should be, I'm requesting the whole topic.
Like a work session.
Yeah.
With CAC input. Making those.
And then another thought that I would like to bring to the CAC is that I know it's very hard for the resource managers to procure local resources. So we keep being told it's more expensive and it's not available. This last presentation showed that it is available, but it is more expensive. I would like to consider a plan to sort of, as the board, similar to the way the board directed staff to become, you know, 100% renewable over, I forget what it was, but, you know, 8-10 years, that maybe there be a similar requirement, probably over the longer time frame, to become 100% local. And with targets on that. I mean, there's targets on 100% renewable. Seems like there should be targets on 100% local and doing that. And, you know, at some point, say only, I don't know, 90% of procurement resources can be spent outside of the territory, and then a couple of years later, only 80% can be spent outside of AVA territory or whatever. I don't know the actual numbers, but I'm saying that there should be a ramped rate with targets so that staff and procurement can plan for it.
So more of like a feasibility study on the possibility to have local projects, more majority versus the minority.
No, not a feasibility study, but the same as the board adopted targets on renewable content.
Just direction then, I'm hearing you say more of a direction towards local projects.
More of a, well, not a direction, but a timeline.
With a timeline, so yeah.
Yeah, direction with a timeline.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Oh.
I'm just trying to summarize.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments? Thank you. I see no other hands raised. All right, so any other, okay, I'll give it a second. Just want to make sure I look at my comments. Adrian, when's our next meeting?
On, our next meeting is March
18.
March 18th?
That's what it says on the agenda.
My apologies, I don't have it in front. Yes, March 18th.
Okay, so we are, and if nothing else, we'll adjourn to March 18th at 6 p.m. back in this room for some of us and the other ones remotely. So thank you very much this evening. This concludes our AVA CAC community meeting. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Ed.
Congratulations all. Thank you.
Au revoir.
Al?